The Allen Line Company appreciates all of the dedicated carriers it takes to move loads across the U.S. Stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
A truck driver, fired after a positive drug test, took his case against a CBD supplement company all the way to the Supreme Court and won. Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine joins Scott Thompson to walk us through what happened and the cautionary tale it provides. In an effort to make the next highway bill one that will benefit truckers, OOIDA's executive vice president gave testimony at a subcommittee hearing in Washington, D.C. Ashley Blackford sits down with Louis Pugh today. From Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy's testimony before a Senate committee and the Trump administration's bid to take a hatchet to regulations to a recap of what we learned at the Mid-America Trucking Show, Jay Grimes of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office joins the program for our weekly installment of Regulatory Roundup. And finally, plenty of people are skeptical about the safety of autonomous trucks. Now several states have decided to take a closer look at the issue. Scott covers that and more with our state legislative expert, Keith Goebold. And now, here's Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. The U.S. Supreme Court on Wednesday rendered a ruling on a case involving a truck driver and CBD oil that dates back all the way back to 2012. It's a cautionary tale of sorts, one that Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine has been following, and he joins us now with details. Tyson, good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Let's start with the basics here on what we need to know. Again, this takes us back to 2012 when Douglas Horn, a professional truck driver, was working. He got into a crash, had some pain, decided to take and use some CBD to relieve that pain. He bit off more than he can chew. Let's run through the basics here of kind of what happened.
Yeah, so he was trying to find a way to alleviate some back pain. So nothing was working. Did some research, found the CBD product that advertised itself as having 0.00 THC, which when you're a truck driver can't have any. So it's like, well, it's telling me 0.00 THC. I just want the CBD anyway. He's like, fine, this is good. I'll take it. He did. And to make a long story short, he got called in for a random drug test, as truck drivers often do. Tested positive for marijuana, and it was because there was in fact THC in this CBD product that said there would be no THC. Kind of caused a problem there, and so subsequently he was fired because of that positive test. And so then what he did was he sued the company, the CBD product company, basically claiming RICO charges. Now, RICO is the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. It's what we associate with mobsters and the mafia. It's what we know it as. But in this case, it also deals with mail and wire fraud. In this case, because they advertised it as 0.00 THC across state lines, that is mail and wire fraud. Bam, you got your RICO charges. Now, RICO charges are criminal, but it also allows you to have a civil claim under RICO. So in this case, because he was fired, he suffered damages from that, and so that was his claim, saying under RICO, you could recover damages to loss of business or property. That's the key word there, and we'll come back to that. And he said, well, I lost my business as an employee, and therefore I get these RICO claims. The district court disagreed. They sided with the CBD company, basically saying that it was a personal injury that caused his unemployment, right? So their racketeering activity of mail fraud did not cause him to lose his business or lose his job. It was the ingestion of THC that made him lose his business. That's a personal injury. And so what the Racketeering Act or the RICO Act does is it implicitly excludes personal injury cases or personal injury claims. And so what they're saying is because of that, you have no case. The district court agreed. Now, the Court of Appeals in the Second Circuit disagreed. And what they said was, sure, this business injury flowed from a personal injury case, but that shouldn't exclude it. And basically, here's a way to look at this. And so let's say you own a small business, right, in a town run by the mafia, and you're not paying the protection money that they're asking for, okay? And so what the mafia does is through a series of crimes like bribery and extortion, they cause your business to go underground. You have a RICO civil claim. No one's asking about that. But let's say instead of doing that, they just beat the crap out of you. You're in a coma, and because you're in the coma, you lose your business. You may not have a racketeering claims because your loss of business is derivative of the personal injury, not the racketeering events, right? So what the Supreme Court was asked was to basically decide on that. So like, can you have a RICO civil claim even though it was a personal injury that caused the injury to the harm to the business? And so long story short, the Supreme Court sided with the truck driver saying he can move forward with his claims is just because it was the personal injury that caused the harm to his business or employment doesn't preclude him from being able to file a RICO civil claim. So he can move forward with that now.
Right. So here we are 13 years later, and essentially the Supreme Court is saying here, go ahead with the lawsuit. So we will follow that now. The most important thing about this particular story, and we talk about this all the time, it really is a cautionary tale because, again, we've got this gentleman who thought he was taking a harmless product, CBD, and I use harmless in quotes because he thought he was using it within the confines of the law as a professional truck driver. Got dinged, got fired, and that set off this whole process that we're dealing with now 13 years later that will continue on for who knows how many years. Again, the cautionary tale here is be super careful if you're taking CBD, and I would even say steer clear of it
Just
altogether.
Don't. Yeah, so a lot of people are focusing on this fact that he's a truck driver who took CBD. Those facts of the case, truck driver CBD, background information for this Supreme Court case, which is deciding only on personal injury and RICO. That was it. Not deciding on any of the merits of the case itself with CBD and the truck driver and all that. That doesn't change. So this changes nothing. Yeah, so to your point, the common advice of just steer clear of CBD products if you're a truck driver, that remains intact. Doesn't change anything. And in fact, in the Supreme Court majority opinion, Justice Amy Coney Barrett even kind of warned the truck drivers, like, looking at this case, you have an uphill battle. Basically saying you may not even win this case. In the end, you may not win this because you have a lot of other obstacles to overcome in your claims. And so, again, if anything, this just highlights the risk that you take taking CBD as a truck driver, which again, my advice is just don't do it because you don't. It's highly unregulated industry, so just don't roll that dice.
Yeah, again, we'll see what happens with this case moving forward. But as you pointed out, Justice Amy Coney Barrett essentially said, good luck with this. You're facing an uphill battle because at the end of the day, you are ultimately responsible for what goes into your body. Again, I won't argue the merits of this case. I'm not an attorney. I don't know if you know that about me, Tyson, but we'll see how this plays out. But again, I just want to underscore that. Be careful what you're putting in your body. If it's CBD, be ready and know that it may not be exactly what it's being advertised.
And with that being said, this is going to be kicked back to the district court. I will be following this case closely, so I will keep everyone informed on how the CBD arguments end up shaking out in the end. Yep.
And that will be probably sometime in 2029 or 2030. Who knows?
Look.
But anyway, we'll see how it pans out. Tyson, we always appreciate it, especially with these cases, kind of putting them in layman's terms and helping us understand what's going on out
thanks
there.
for having me.
We will leave it there for now. Landline Now News, Scott Thompson. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to Steen Gronlund of Longmont, Colorado. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 55 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 413 years without causing a single accident. Next, Ashley Blackford discusses the next highway bill with OOIDA Executive Vice President Louis Pugh, and OOIDA's Jay Grimes updates us on happenings in our nation's capital. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget miss accuracy when you're truck on a CAT scale.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
With rising costs affecting everyone, switching to a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper can help you avoid expensive repairs and downtime. Save money and keep your truck running smooth with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Landline now. Welcome back. Louis Pugh joins me now. Louis, I don't even feel like you need an introduction.
Yeah, I know. You can see my picture on every post office across America.
Now, last week you had a very, very busy week, of course, with the Mid-America Trucking Show. But I want to go before that. You testified at the House Highways and Transit Subcommittee hearing. Talk to me about what that was about.
Yeah, it was a crazy week last week. And what a day to put a hearing, the day before Matt. So, yeah, I was on 6 airplanes last week, I think.
Gosh.
And I don't know somewhere I think I passed myself a couple of times. But, yeah, they had a hearing, and it was mainly folks from transportation, as far as trucking transportation. There was myself, somebody from truckload carriers, a gentleman from the Teamsters, a gentleman representing shippers, and a gentleman representing agriculture from Farm Bureau. And hearing was pretty much, we have a highway bill starting up, and they're getting ready to start that legislation. So the hearing was pretty much based on what we want to see in the new highway bill and issues that are very pertinent to trucking. And we, OOIDA, reminded Congress that this is an opportunity to pass one of the greatest trucker-friendly highway bills ever if they have the intestinal fortitude to do it.
I'm curious, how do you prepare for these things?
I have a great staff in D.C. OOIDA has a great staff. We have a great staff here at our office. And as I tell everybody, I'm very lucky to have all the people that we have here in our building and in D.C. because they all make me look real smart. And for one, I'm dealing with this stuff all the time, so that helps a lot. But, we as far as before we even get to D.C., we kind of decide what we're going to talk about, and I make notes and make sure I'm studied up on the kind of things I need to do. And then when we get to D.C., actually there's preparation there prior to the hearing. Like I got there Monday morning, and Monday and Tuesday we spent the days on the Hill meeting with the lawmakers of T&I or their staffers, reminding them who we are. I mean, some know us, like Nels and Babin, and some of them we're already good friends, so it's not. But some of the newer people and some of the people we don't see much, and even the people in the opposition, we go talk to them and kind of tell them why and try to get them. And then there's also we give them suggested questions that some may or may not ask. But a lot of times, that's why I tell our members out here, it's so important that you talk to your lawmakers and you keep them up because they don't know anything about trucking. And a lot of times when we go in and have these meetings, they'll ask us questions like, what's this going or what's the real reason? And we try to explain it and lay it out in very simple to easy to understand terms. And that's why it's really good for you as a trucker to call your lawmakers and explain to them how things help or hurt you and just why and how.
Yeah, you can definitely tell, like you said, like Representative Nels, the ones who kind of have more of a vested interest in trucking as opposed to the ones who really, are unaware.
Yeah, I mean, Nels is such a good friend. I love the guy. And it was funny because, just a little story, I guess, the night before the hearing, they had an event for T&I leadership. And of course, Sam Graves was there as the chair of T&I, and then all the subcommittee chairs were there, which Nels is over aviation. And I was there talking with Rick Crawford and Scott Perry, and then a couple other lobbyists that were in there, and then me, and we were just standing. We were the first ones there talking, and Nels comes rolling in, and he always makes a good. And he had a Medal of Honor recipient with him because it was Medal of Honor Day, which was fabulous. Very cool story, very nice gentleman. But when Nels came in, he walked right up to him and, "Hey, Louis, how's all my truckers doing?" And blah 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 blah. And so it's really good when you have that first, on that first name basis. And Nels really cares about trucking. He's a colorful guy and a colorful character, but he really does care about truckers and trucking, and he really gets it.
Now, a lot of topics, of course, were covered. Size and weight, I feel like, was brought up a lot.
Yeah, because How'd that guy tell me that was in favor? We're not trying to make trucks bigger. We're just trying to make them heavier. And I'm still trying to figure out what that means. I mean, I feel like if you're a married man or whatever, or got a girlfriend, and if you tell your wife or girlfriend that she isn't bigger, she's just heavier, I don't think she can disseminate the two. So, but hey, whatever. But yeah, the gentleman who was there is a nice guy, and I appreciate talking to him. He works for one of the largest, if not the largest, company in America that over construction, so aggregates and gravel and all these different heavy things. And of course, they want as much stuff hauled as they can, and they're for heavier. He was representing shippers. There are shippers that want heavier. And then, of course, ag, they like to haul a little more than what they're supposed to. And so, with that being said, that was sort of where they were. But myself and truckload carriers and Teamsters, Representative Collins, who has a trucking company in Georgia, Congressman Boss from Illinois. We know his family owns a trucking company, and he worked in the family business before coming a congressman. We're all like, this is a no-win for drivers and truckers, and it doesn't work. And, you can spin this however you want to spin it, but at the end of the day, it's losing for trucking. So I'm hoping Congress realized that. I feel like they kind of did. It was funny, though, because I kind of chuckle. It's funny how political stuff works in Washington, D.C., if you really dig down into it, because there's a lawmaker from Ohio who's on T&I, and last year she got all up in my business about speed limiters and how we have to have them and how unsafe they are, these trucks are going fast and blah, blah, which is fine. Of course, she didn't let me rebuttal, because that's what they like to do. They get in your business and then not let you rebuttal. But now this time, she's like for heavier trucks. Now, how's that work? And I know why, because the gentleman was sitting beside me, his company represents a very, very large highway construction company in the state of Ohio. Of course, I'm from there. And I know, in fact, I have friends who work for that company. And when it's a good company. But so, it's... You follow the money, I guess, is the way this works a lot of times, is follow the money. So, yeah, that was interesting. But I got called out in this one by Mr. Johnson from South Dakota, and he's all for this heavy stuff and really pushing it. But again, he didn't let me talk. He called me out and then spun his questions to the gentleman beside me who wanted longer and heavier, and that's fine. It's all BS, and, Mr. Johnson probably doesn't know any more about driving a truck than the man on the moon, but hey, that's okay. That's how lawmakers sometimes are.
The gentleman next to you, yes, Ryan Lindsay, he seemed to be kind of against a lot of the things that were brought up, the size and weight, driver shortage, I believe he...
Yeah, he says they got a driver shortage because they pay all these great things and all this stuff, and maybe they don't pay great enough. I don't know. But, no one else was singing the driver shortage hymn, and we know there's not. And as I said to him, and I said it in the hearing, we have a shortage of experienced drivers. I think it's safe to say, and that's who he's hiring. He's not hiring kids out of trucking, or he's not even kids. He's not on a 40-year-old out of, truck driving school. He's hiring people that's got some experience, because the stuff that his people are doing, you need a little experience. You need to know what to look for, dump trucks and stuff like that. And so it's safe to say that there's an experienced driver shortage, but his driver shortage and all that stuff, yeah, he's blowing smoke.
Do you think it helps, there of course was him who was kind of the, opposing side, but everyone else kind of, y'all seemed like you were on the same page.
Yeah, I think it, again, I go back to what I said earlier. I think when the two lawmakers who have trucks or trucking backgrounds and the three panelists that are representing trucking are pretty much singing, there we had a little differences, but pretty much singing Kumbaya, it sort of shows what the shippers and ag are wanting and what trucking's wanting. And I've never owned an aggregate company. I understand what they are, but I do have an agricultural background, and I understand where the ag people come from and stuff like that. But, the problem with this heavier stuff and longer stuff always ends up, and it's hard for people to get this through their head And I think this will even trickle down to farmers who want to get more product to the market on one truck instead of two. There's people in the middle that are going to take advantage of this situation. And at the end of the day, you're going to end up with less money. And that's what happens in trucking. I mean, I brought this up myself. I used to haul steel. It was all paid by the ton or hundredweight, I'm sorry. But anyway, so, the more you haul, the more money you make, in theory. But what happens a lot of times, and this happened to me, we got permits and these sort of things. And once everybody started doing it, they realized we can move more product. They cut the rates on the permit loads. So per hundredweight, you were making less money to haul heavier loads. So you're making less money overall because it's more wear and tear on your equipment. It's more fuel. Takes longer to load, takes longer to unload. It's more stressful. I mean, we surveyed truckers. 68% of this said it would cause more stress in their job, and 85% said it'll make the highways less safe. So right there, it's a no-brainer. Why do it? And we got into this, they kind of pushed, 80,000's been around for however 30 years or for whatever. Well, yeah, but it seems to be working, and our infrastructure's in pretty bad shape already. And I always remind people, as much as I like to pick on the state up north as an Ohio boy, and that's Michigan for people who are from Ohio, but, and all in fun. But if you go to Michigan and drive around on their roads and see how rough they are, especially between Toledo and Detroit and 94 going over to Chicago and stuff, that's what longer, heavier does for you. And, they're talking about putting all these axles on and how much safer and how much better it'll be. Well, the roads in Michigan, you can have all kinds of axles and all kinds of weight, and the roads are terrible.
One of the things that I think kind of stood out to me during the hearing, I believe it was Mr. Lindsay brought up about, wanting to keep trucks off of rural roads. And I think a significant amount of time went by, and you brought that back up saying, well, that's where they're picking up loads. That's where they're hauling to, at times.
Yeah, Mr. Lindsay and them and a couple of lawmakers kept saying, we need to get these trucks off the rural roads and on the interstate and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I understand somewhere along the way. But, they're talking about picking up livestock. Ain't a lot of cattle ranches on the interstate where you can pick up your cows. Now, there is one exit over in Kansas going down toward Wichita where you get off and there's a big cattle pen where they can load cows. But that's not the norm.
Yeah.
They're got to get off. I don't have tractor trailers come move the cows I have, but I live way, way off of any kind of major interstate or road. And you're right. I mean, I hauled frac sand in the oil fields in Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. I spent almost 99% of my time on 2-lane roads because that's all there was to get from where you loaded your sand to where the well site was. So we're not going to have this mass exodus of trucks from 2-lane roads to interstates by making this happen because trucks have to go where the freight picks up, and they have to go where it delivers.
Anything surprise you about this hearing?
No. I mean, I think if you watch the hearing, or if you watch, you can watch it later, I think you'll see OOIDA got pretty much the majority of the questions, and I think that plays well and shows the dedication and hard work that the guys do in D.C. and the good relationships they've built. And, and that the people in Washington and Congress trust what OOIDA says. So I think hats off to my guys in D.C. and hats off to everyone here in this office because we work hard. We don't change our message. We stand behind what we say, and we stand up for truckers and what our members want us to do.
And hats off to you, Louie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks to all the truckers out there. Y'all be safe, and we appreciate what you do.
That was OOIDA's Executive Vice President, Louis Pugh, talking about the recent House Highways and Transit Subcommittee hearing. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
At Truck Stop, we've built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone's FD694 drive tire for long haul and regional applications now delivers 126,000 more removal miles than the Yokohama TY517 MC2. Contact your Firestone commercial dealer to learn more.
Welcome back to Landline Now. While you're out working, so are federal regulators. It's hard to keep track of what's new because you've understandably got other things on your mind. But thankfully, we've got Jay Grimes on our side. Jay is OOIDA's Director of Federal Affairs, and he joins us by phone from Washington, D.C. for our weekly installment of Regulatory Roundup. Jay, how we doing?
Doing all right. Good to be with you.
Good to have you, as always. We've got a lot to parse through here. I do want to start with Wednesday morning's hearing within the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy was there to testify. Jay, sometimes we get quite a bit of trucking talk, I guess, with these hearings. We did not get much this time around, though.
Yeah, not too much in terms of specific trucking policy. And this was a hearing held in the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, which is going to be a critical committee that's going to be heavily involved in the development of the surface transportation / highway reauthorization bill that is gearing up throughout this Congress. OOIDA Executive Vice President was in town last week to testify before the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee on a similar topic. We did have a lot of specific trucking focus in last week's hearing. This one, a little more broad, with just DOT Secretary Duffy appearing before the Senate. A lot of his comments focused on project delivery, permitting delays, and trying to make infrastructure investment, infrastructure building a little bit more efficient. We did hear from Senator Lummis, who has been a champion of truck parking, who serves on this committee, ask a series of questions, making some comments in opposition to some of the EV mandates that were a part of the last administration, part of the last highway bill. And she did have a chance to plug the need for truck parking. And certainly the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, they have jurisdiction over truck parking. So we're continuing to work with them, including Senator Lummis and Senator Mark Kelly, who also serves on the committee, to get that reintroduced on the Senate side. The Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, introduced on the House side again earlier this year, a couple weeks ago. Want to get that reintroduced on the Senate. And of course, big goal is to have that included in the pending highway reauthorization bill. So I think Senator Duffy kind of avoided any controversy in the hearing, but he's got some big issues that he's focused on, but did get to hear some concerns about truck parking.
Yeah, and it's always encouraging when you hear a U.S. Senator, Senator Lummis in this case, talk about an issue like truck parking. Obviously, she understands the issue quite well. We hear about it in the House all the time with Representative Bost and others. Troy Nehls, Representative Nehls, also talks about it quite a bit as well. So it's refreshing to hear that on the Senate side, knowing that they are aware of that issue. And as you said, hopefully we'll see that bill reintroduced here on the Senate side in the near future here. But we'll also keep an eye on this highway bill as it as all of this kind of unfolds too, and we see how it plays out there. Part of this conversation, somewhat related, it's no secret, obviously, that the Department of Transportation under President Trump is looking at removing regulations from the books. Now they've formally reached out seeking feedback from the public on those efforts. I know OOIDA has a lot of thoughts on this, but first and foremost, this opens the door a lot for a lot of feedback, right?
Yeah, no question. And this is a request for information issued by the Department of Transportation. I think one of the first major initial actions that we've seen from the new leadership at DOT, and it is going to be seeking comments and information to assist DOT in identifying existing regulations, guidance, paperwork requirements, and other regulatory obligations that can be modified or repealed consistent with law to ensure that DOT administrative actions do not undermine the national interests and that DOT is achieving meaningful burden reduction while continuing to meet their statutory obligations and ensure the safety of the U.S. transportation system. And this announcement really builds off two executive orders that we saw from the White House in late January and mid-February, really kind of addressing the themes of deregulation, improving government efficiency. Those executive orders laid out that each department kind of has to do an internal review looking at the regulations they have on the books, which ones might be unconstitutional, which ones might be based on unlawful delegations of legislative power, and there's a whole list. And this kind of outreach for public comment is really going to kind of build upon those internal reviews as not only DOT, but certainly I think a number of other federal agencies are kind of looking at what's on the books, looking to see where they can save money, reduce burdens, and at the same time improving efficiency and improving safety as well. So I think we are certainly welcoming this opportunity to formally submit some ideas that we've kind of discussed over a number of years that we think would be good ideas for modification, amending, certainly a few that need to get off the books entirely. So this is certainly going to be one we're going to be submitting comments on as an association. Certainly encourage any individuals, drivers who have their own ideas to submit their comments. I'm sure there's not going to be a shortage of suggestions coming into DOT over the next 30 days. So we 30-day comment period right now, which goes through Monday, May 5th. Regulations.gov, docket number DOT-OST-2025-0026. I'm sure we'll have links on Landline and Fighting for Truckers as well to encourage comments. Of course, one that comes to first and foremost is repealing the proposed speed limiter rulemaking that's been on the books now for just about 3 years, kind of got reopened back in 2022, somewhat out of the blue, thanks to in large part to OOIDA's advocacy and certainly truckers making their voices heard. That rulemaking has not advanced too far down the regulatory process, but we would sure like to see it get withdrawn and formally off the books moving forward. A host of other regulations that may be designed for safety that haven't achieved those benefits kind of do have to make a difference here when DOT in the announcement says what they can do within the law. It's not going to be every regulation that's on the books. It's really going to be looking at those that weren't mandated by Congress, perhaps overreach by previous administrations. So I think there's some aspects, a lot of listeners might be thinking, the ELD mandate would certainly be a good candidate. I think that might be a tough one to get repealed. Certainly, I think there's hope that it can be modified. And then FMCSA was kind of looking at that in a review done a couple years ago. And we want to make sure that there's not any further burdensome regulations put on as part of that. So there's going to be a long list here over the next 30 days that we're going to be putting together and submitting to DOT for modification and repeal speed limiters at the top of that list.
Yeah, the DOT is looking for feedback here. I have a feeling they're going to get a lot of it. And you mentioned a few of the big ones right there.
Yes.
But as you mentioned, we'll have the links on landlinenow.com. And, of course, fightingfortruckers.com is another great resource to doing just that as well. So make sure to use those and make sure your voice is being heard by the people there in Washington as they look to deregulate and pull some of these rules off the shelf. I should mention that there were representatives from DOT and FMCSA at the Mid-America Trucking Show, and they did during one session say they'd like to eliminate 10 regulations for every new regulation that is put into effect. I think that may be a tall task, but that is their goal here. I'm curious about your thoughts on that, and I guess the other issues that came up or really didn't come up during the FMCSA and DOT sessions at MATS.
Right. So that kind of 10-for-1 policy emanates from one of the executive orders that was mentioned in this request for information. And it's basically, I think we had a 2-for-1 policy under the first Trump administration. Now, it's not for every new rule. It's really got to be a major rule that they're proposing where they've got to find 10 to kind of offset some of the costs and some of the money, any new money being spent or invested. So, again, this request for information is kind of going to give them, I think, a whole number of suggestions that if they were to propose a new rule, they could have these to kind of work off of. I'm not exactly sure how willing and how quickly this administration is going to be putting out some major new regulations. I think the focus right now is on the deregulatory side, and that was mentioned by the representatives at FMCSA last week at MATS. Chief Counsel for FMCSA, Jesse Ellison, was on hand, and Department of Transportation staffer Ben Segrist was also providing some information. I know they talked a lot about emphasis on due process, enforcement, didn't get into a whole lot of specifics, unfortunately. I think, again, this comment period is going to be kind of giving them a roadmap, and certainly waiting to see what the priorities are going to be from recently nominated FMCSA Administrator Derek Bars, who, of course, as we've kind of discussed, has a law enforcement background. I think it was critical to note that not only from this leadership session at MATS, but in a couple of the others, the issue of foreign drivers, non-domiciled CDLs, and fraudulent motor carriers operating on the roads, I think was a major theme. And it sounds like FMCSA is getting the message, and that's being discussed from what we heard from Mr. Ellison. So would have liked to gotten some more details, but understandably, we're still kind of in this transition period. And now we've got a major comment period where FMCSA, DOT, I think are going to have a lot more substance to kind of work off here as they kind of get set up, get some of this leadership in place at the modal agencies moving forward.
And clearly and obviously, you and your colleagues there in OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office are going to continue to be in FMCSA's ear about a lot of these issues, freight fraud being a big one. They did talk about that. I think they're saying all the right things. And as you kind of pointed out, they're essentially saying, hey, we're kind of new here. Give us a little bit of time. We know this is a serious problem. We're going to take care of it and do what we can. So that is encouraging, I suppose, here as we look to the future, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And certainly we know some of the updated registration system features, which they've been working on for a number of years, are really starting to get deployed. And I know they had some testing for the identity verification tools that FMCSA is hoping to roll out later this year. So that continues to move forward as well.
Yeah, lots going on. There will be a lot more to cover here in the coming weeks, months, and years with all of these issues you talked about there, Jay. But we do encourage people, again, to reach out about that FMCSA notice, looking for feedback about deregulation. As I said, I think they're going to get a lot of feedback. They wanted feedback, and they're going to get it here. And we'll look forward to hearing what OOIDA has to say there. You may have to write your own book in that comment period, but we'll see how that one goes. Jay, we appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Our thanks to Jay Grimes of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office for his time. Landline Now continues right after this short commercial break. Please do stick around.
Protect your diesel engine with Howe's Diesel Defender. Restore vital lubricity, eliminate injector deposits, and boost fuel economy by 5% or more. Power, performance, protection, all in one. Howe's Diesel Defender, available now.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Welcome back to the show. Our time with you today is waning, but we've always got time for our next guest, who's here today to talk about autonomous trucks and tort reform. Keith Goebel is a state legislative editor for Landline Magazine, and he joins us in Studio A right now. Keith, how we doing?
Scott, doing all right. How you doing?
Doing just fine. Enjoying the spring weather.
Yeah,
the rain.
The back and forth and the
the
temperature-wise.
The seesaw of temperature here in the Midwest.
And then rain versus, clear skies. It's never a dull moment, spring.
Never know what you're going to get. Speaking of never knowing what you're going to get, let's talk autonomous trucks here. This is going to be an ongoing theme in the years to come. What are regulators on the federal and state level doing to make sure that autonomous trucks are safe on U.S. roadways? We've got some new developments on the state level, Keith, which is why you're here today. We've got the issue popping up in several states. Let's start with Montana and Virginia, both of which have had bills hit the governor's desk. I know one of the bills has been signed into law now, and they're very similar in what they aim to do, right?
Are you just going to tell everybody the whole story?
Yeah, I'm just going to keep going.
I'm just going to say yes and let you... Yeah, no, hey, as you said, I mean, this is obviously a trend, something that we talk about here regularly, something that I guess I had kind of lost sight of was the fact that there are more than half of all states now that have rules that are related to autonomous trucks that are in place now, which I guess kind of makes sense. But I mean, it's still something. There are so many legislatures that are continuing to discuss this topic, and one of the things that one of the reasons why they're needing to continue to discuss it is because a lot of rules that are in place have been in place for a while. They're now outdated. So as this technology continues to evolve, legislators have to go back in and revisit the issue and try to keep up or try to get ahead in some cases. Montana and Virginia both had very similar bills that were introduced, both looking to essentially put limitations in requiring a human driver to be physically present in the vehicle and have the ability to intervene if necessary. So looking to slow the progress on the use of autonomous trucks in those particular states. In both instances, both Virginia and Montana, their legislation was amended down to the point where looking essentially to have a work group or to study the issue and then come back later on to the State House with plans of maybe better suited to address the issue. I know in the case with Virginia, their bill, the governor ended up signing it. There is a requirement that this group that is going to be meeting to discuss autonomous trucks, that they come back to the State House and that legislation to address the issue could be offered up here within the next year or so. In the case with Montana, their legislation has very similar to what Virginia is doing. Their legislation has been sent to the governor. I mean, I guess the full expectation is that he'll sign it. I mean, I guess you're accomplishing something, but just not as was originally intended.
So these two states, as you pointed out there, Virginia is now law. Montana looks like it's going to be law. They did water things down a little bit there, but they are taking a look at the issue. And we've got other states doing the same thing. California, Delaware, and Texas are currently looking at it. We had a similar, or I guess an effort in North Dakota as well that has since died, right? Anything stand out to you about those states?
Yeah, well, the California legislation, Delaware, and what North Dakota had attempted to do, much not watered-down versions, essentially looking to go in and put in simply a ban on driverless trucks. California, we've been talking about here for the past few years, legislation that had been sent to the governor in a couple of occasions and was vetoed. But the bill sponsor there, Assemblymember Cecilia Aguiar-Curry, continues to bring the issue back to the State House in hopes that it will win approval. Again, by the lawmakers, what will happen when it gets to the governor's desk? Again, very unlikely that the governor would sign it. She's made some slight revisions this time around to her bill, but essentially it would again require it would have the same provisions in place, like requiring someone to be in an autonomous vehicle. If you're out delivering commercial goods, have someone there. The Delaware bill is halfway through the State House. Again, it is very similar to California, just saying that you cannot have an autonomous truck operating on Delaware roads for testing purposes, transporting goods, transporting passengers, unless you have someone actually behind the wheel. North Dakota, their Senate, it was a House bill that approved a very similarly worded legislation there, and it made it to the Senate floor. And worth pointing out, they did revise it a bit, asking for a study to be done on if that was essentially the right thing to do. Their Senate did not agree to that, so they did kill it there. In Texas, their legislation still very early on in the process there. They have a little bit of a longer session. But again, just looking to require a human operator to be present in an autonomous vehicle, which it's not pointed at specifically to automated trucks, but it would apply to automated trucks. So essentially it's very more broad in its application. But again, still early on. There's a House bill and there is a Senate bill in the Texas legislature, so that you've got lawmakers in both sides of the State House that can, in theory, discuss this at the same time, which might expedite the process of getting it through the State House. But at this point, it's not moving very quickly.
Yeah, which is interesting, too, in Texas, because Aurora, at some point this month, has said that it is going to launch its driverless trucks throughout the state. So we'll see what lawmakers do there, and maybe an attempt there to kind of slow down the progress with Aurora and other autonomous trucking companies. We'll see how that one plays out here. Before we let you go, Keith, one more issue to talk about. It comes from Georgia, which just took another, I think it's fair to say, another big step forward on tort reform. What's the latest there? Yeah, the latest is, and we've been talking about this, there's multiple issues that are being addressed with this bill package. It's a two-bill package. The governor advocated for it, state house leaders pushing for it, and not surprisingly, they got it through the State House, and it covers such things as inflated medical costs or phantom damages, bifurcation of a trial, which essentially is saying that you have to have a trial set up into two parts. One where you're looking at evidence, and then if you're determined to be at fault, then you would move on to a damages stage. Another requirement for seatbelt use to be disclosed to a jury in a case where may be very relevant if a plaintiff was did not have their belt on. Could have played a very large factor in an injury, that sort of thing. Third-party litigation financing, a disclosure requirement for that is also included in this package, which has been sent to the governor. And as we talk right now, he may be signing it. It's going to happen. These changes are going to happen. Just a matter of when. Yeah, an attempt there in Georgia to reverse I guess, reputation as being a judicial hellhole, one of many states that has that moniker attached. But they've been doing some things there in Georgia. To their credit, they've been taking a look at this issue, and it's a win for truck drivers. Yeah, it's been years in the making. We've been talking about here for the past few, and they've gotten to this stage, which is definitely good to see. It is good to see. We'll keep an eye on that and see if Governor Brian Kemp signs that bill into law, as we expect he will. Keith, when it happens, we know we'll hear from you, and we'll check out your work on landline.media. Always appreciate talking to you, appreciate your work, and we'll see you again soon. Yeah, thanks for having me. That was Keith Goebel of Landline Magazine, and that's our show for today. We thank you for listening. Thanks for all you do as well to keep America moving, and we'll see you next time right here on Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad.
A son.
A husband.
Wife.
I'm a writer.
Photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome, and I am
a
professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.